Welcome to a football show Monday edition. That is Paul Kuharsky of paulkuharsky.com. I am Braden Gall, and of course, we are brought to you by Sinkers Beverages and Shotgun Willie's Barbecue. We'll tell you more about Sinkers Beverages coming up in just a minute. We've got a loss to discuss as the Titans played very well in the first half with Mason Rudolph under center, and then totally wet the bed in the second half, which is sort of a track record, sort of a trend here with this particular football team. Why is that? Tight end Nick Vannett had some things to say on Monday, so we'll get to why this team is struggling in the second half, why they're struggling on first down, what's going on with the sideline and energy and confidence and leadership on this particular football team, how this team responds in game to big moments, and what the veterans are doing currently, and who maybe not blame Paul, but who needs to sort of wear some of the struggles of the veteran crew that were all brought in this particular offseason. So a lot of stuff to get to. First of all, before we do, I know first of all, I hate to say this, and it really hurts me in the inside, but congrats to your Yankees on getting to the World Series.
Thank you. Condolences on your Mets, but it was entirely predictable.
Look, here's the thing. There's a lot of Mets folks in the market, right? Shout out to Teron Davenport, to JT, to Willie Donick. There's lots of Mets fans out there, and in this particular market. And what's interesting is I was not upset at all about the loss to the Dodgers. Like, the Dodgers were
typical Mets thinking.
No, they're just by far the better baseball team. And
we lost to a better team. Everything's fine.
It was one of the most magical 4 weeks of baseball that I can remember. And it was just a lot of fun. And I just sometimes the key is the journey, not the destination.
Yeah, this is my problem with that. You're allowed to think that in about 2 weeks. First, you need to be pissed and mad at the blown opportunity. Titans fans did this, like after they lost, against the Bengals as the number 1 seed. Oh, it was a great ride and everything. People who have kind of a loserish mentality, who root for loserish teams that have big seasons, they jump to that conclusion like 2 minutes after the game's over. No, for a while, you'd be utterly pissed at the opportunity lost. Then, yes, you get into the journey, but there's transition time.
Okay.
As a fan of a historically good team, if the Yankees lose this World Series, which is entirely possible, I'll be utterly pissed about the blown opportunity after 15 years of waiting, the lifespan of my son. And then, yes, I'll get back to the point where, it was a great ride and I had a great postseason and everything, no matter what happens. But the day after, I'm not going to talk like, oh, what a magical journey. And that to me is a loserish fan mentality.
Well, as usual, the Yankees have a completely soulless and characterless drive to a World Series.
That Soto at bat was a soulless at bat, an all-time classic at bat.
Listen. We're going to talk Titans, but I got to share a Green Bay Packers stock up there, and I'm still pissed that they didn't cover the onside kick against Seattle in like 2011. So, like, I think it's interesting, a sports psychological dynamic, in that the teams, to your point, the teams that I expect to be very good and have high expectations, I carry the pain a lot more, right? Like, I'm upset. I'm still upset about the Packers losing to the 49ers in the NFC Championship game a couple years ago. I'm still very upset about that. But this team was the worst team in baseball in like June. And then the things that actually happened are like, it built core memories for my daughter, who's never really seen the Mets do anything. So, like, getting able to celebrate a 9th inning home run to stay alive multiple times is a kind of a big deal. And so I was pissed off that they left runners on base like multiple times yesterday. But and I didn't want to lose to the Yankees, which is a totally different. That is an inferiority complex for sure. There's that in there.
And well deserved.
Yeah, that's fair. Look, you have all the championships. New York's a National League town. That's the difference. So Trey asks,
New York's a National League town in the 50s, and not even really then.
Trey says,
"How is certainly not a National League town now? It's silly."
I just don't think the city changes all that much when the Yankees are good or bad. When the Mets are great, the city changes a lot. It's blue collar, man. It's blue collar folks.
What a theory. When the bad team is good, the city changes. And when the good team stays good, the city doesn't change. Trust me, the city is going to change for the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, we'll see. Well, look, I like the fact that the Dodgers and Yankees are playing in the World Series. I think it's great. I think it's very historical. It's a great matchup. Two great teams. I'm all on board with that. I'll go Dodgers. Trey says, how was the Isbell concert? I'd like to hear about it.
Yeah, had a good time. Really liked it. Thought I like when a guy and his band have smart sound people, and they had the appropriate sound for the building. I was hoping to be swept off my feet by something other than the two songs that I love, Cover Me Up and 24 Frames. And those were, to me, very much the two best songs.
Is that the first time you'd seen Cover Me Up?
Yeah.
Like live?
Yeah. First time I'd seen anything live. So,
yeah.
But I really enjoyed it. I've been listening to stuff in the car, which it takes a lot for me to go music in the car. That's an old man now, especially music that I'm not familiar with in the car. My wife enjoyed it a lot. And,
oh, great.
And she didn't know anything about him going in. So we had a nice night out. And it was recovery from the Yankees losing that awful game to the Guardians, which was a classic game, but we came out on the wrong side of. So it was a great night.
So a weekend bookended by two amazing personal situations for you: the Yankees clinching a World Series and a Jason Isbell concert with the Misses. In between, we had a Titans football game against the Buffalo Bills, and we have Brian Callahan here from Monday's press conference. We're going to play where he kind of talks about some of the veterans and what they need to get done. So we'll get into that conversation a little bit later on. I've got a lot of stuff here on how this team responds after giving up a touchdown or scoring a touchdown defensively and offensively. And then this weird confidence question and leadership question that I thought Nick Vannett, I don't think I'm not trying to play gotcha here with Nick. I don't like that, but he did kind of walk himself into this. Hey, our sideline kind of sucks sometimes. And I'm paraphrasing that. And then you could see him in the press conference trying to massage the message a little bit. You asked him a couple of questions, so we'll get to all of that. However, Sinkers Beverages, folks. Look, this Titans team is not going to go on a long winning streak. Okay, I'm not trying to be rude. I'm not trying to ruin your hopes and dreams here, folks, but they're not going to do it, which means you're going to need to have some beverages during the games. And you shouldn't be driving, of course. So search Uber Eats for Sinkers Beverages. 4-time, now reigning 4-time liquor store of the year. They won their best of last week, 4th time in a row. They also won an award for best craft beer retailer. So you can search Uber Eats, Sinkers Beverages, have that booze delivered directly to your house, or you can walk in their award-winning beer fridge and collect anything you want. Great local craft beers from all over the city. Tons of great breweries in this town now. So go check them out. And congratulations to you, Paul, for being the second best sports writer in the city.
Yeah. I'm much happier for Sinkers coming in first than I am for myself coming in second in a reader's poll. But thanks.
It's still nice. Good job. You need to turn the subscribers, turn them loose next year is what you need to do.
An extensive campaign is why some of these categories are not great.
I tend to agree with you. Anyway, congrats to Sinkers and Shotgun Willie's as well. Shotgun Willie's won. Shotgun Willie's Barbecue, of course, just a few minutes from downtown, right up there on Briley and Gallatin Pike. I think it's the best brisket in the city. Writer's Choice Best Barbecue in the city. I think that's their 4th award as well. So make sure you go check out both our great, amazing local sponsors. Lots of great barbecue in this city, Paul. Lots of great barbecue. But make sure you go check out Shotgun Willie's Barbecue, the best Texas barbecue in Nashville, the official barbecue of the Houston Oilers. Okay. Still my favorite part of the episode. All right, let me ask you a question about the Levis injury thing. Because I think Schefter reported it. Was it Saturday that he said 4 to 5 weeks, week to week? I don't think it's all that different from what Brian Callahan has told us and said about the injury. It's very possible that some of the complaints we had about the play calling around Will Levis was certainly tied to the injury. And then Mason Rudolph late in the week gets named the starter, or at least it's reported that he's named the starter.
By Callahan on Saturday.
There you go. And then today, Callahan kind of alluded to like, hey, when Will Levis is back, he'll be ready to go. That could be as soon as this week or next. So he's sort of already it's clear that it is week to week and that the injury originally was probably worse than we expected. Can you kind of, as a journalist, take us through this sort of timeline of why does he gets hurt, he plays, then he doesn't play, and then he's not announced as the starter, and then now there's a chance he's back next week?
I think the bye week was the big thing. So he got hurt, and then they had a bye week, and so he had a week where he didn't really throw, and didn't need to throw, and that gave him some recovery time, and then he's not really back until a Wednesday or asked to do anything substantial, and then he had a reasonably good practice week, and they felt good that he could do everything he needed to do. And so they carried him into the Colts game feeling good about that. Obviously didn't get great output throughout that game. And certainly I think he probably takes a shot there, and those tend to wear off late in the game. And he said it did impact him in the fourth quarter, though Callahan kind of downplayed that. But indications are he did not respond a couple days later with a limited Wednesday, full Thursday, limited Friday, and they just didn't see out of him what they needed to see out of him, and then decide on Saturday morning that that he doesn't have enough, and decide to go with Rudolph. And so now the question is, so he didn't play. How will he feel on Wednesday? How will he perform Wednesday, Thursday, Friday? Will it be worth it to play him in Detroit and not have, then go through the same kind of cycle where he probably wouldn't be feeling good the next week, or does he need a week off in order to recover? So they're in kind of a touchy-feely spot with him now in terms of how it feels and how much rest he needs with an AC sprain of his throwing shoulder.
So we live in a world where in a media climate where conspiracy theories run rampant for as long and as far as they'll burn until they kind of burn out. We're seeing that right now with Hurricane Helene in North Carolina. It is hard, I think, for Titans fan, because I feel this way at times. I kind of know better. And I have you to ask about this, but it does seem awfully convenient that the very two difficult, very good football teams that this team is going to play on the road line up with him not playing. And in a place where we already are talking about his confidence, where I'm an Occam's razor guy like you, which is he was probably hurt. As you just laid out, the things happened. It didn't get better. He's on the bench because his arm hurts. Shoulder hurts. That's what this is. But it is hard to ignore some of the coincidental stuff that's happening with the two road games, the struggles on offense, Rudolph playing okay against Miami, I guess. What do you say to a fan that comes to you with that kind of stuff? Says, I don't know about all this. Is it
we saw what he did in Buffalo, and it wasn't any better. Put the ball on the ground 3 times, only lost it once, so he had better fumble luck, threw a pick, and he looked more efficient and better early, and they played a good half of football. Air quotes. Well, air quotes. A good half of Titans football is a 10-0 half, which is not a good half of football in the NFL when you're playing. Certainly when you're playing a team like Buffalo, when their good half of football is 34-0. And so, people are very eager. There's one segment that just wants him sat. So I can understand that. But Mason Rudolph showed that he's not, much, much better. There are other people that want him sitting and learning behind Rudolph. And I just think that the Titans, what they've decided to do this year is to play him and learn. And there are very few opportunities where you get to sit and learn. And you learn less sitting than you learn playing. And so he reiterated again today, Callahan. Easton Freeze asked, where's Amy in this deal where you've got this season to evaluate Levis? And Callahan basically said she is on board with what our intentions were this season, and she remains on board, and she understands the patience that's required with it. So it was kind of a question asking, has the owner graced you with time for this project? And the answer was pretty much yes, she has. And so they've got that going. Now they need to win a game here somewhere just to buy themselves, some more buy-in from across the board, and to prove that they, can have a good Sunday and play some good football for 4 quarters and find some big plays at big moments offensively and defensively and all of that. But I don't think the different quarterback makes all that much of a difference. And I think if you're going to get that win, it's probably going to be with some upside out of your quarterback. And I think the better upside is still with Levis.
Yeah, I think he said the old phrase, we have an understanding, right? Which is one of those like answery things. And so it sounds like the front office, the coach, and the owner are all on the same page. At least that's what they're saying outwardly. And then he followed that up with, look, we've got to play him to be able to figure out whether or not he's the guy or not. And, you and I kind of we kind of we didn't dance around it, but there was some like sort of speculation about Callahan's sort of mannerisms at the press conference last week about some of this, which is like maybe he does have a feeling about where this is going. And I would assume that if he's a good football coach, he has an idea of what he thinks about Will Levis already, but needs to see a little bit more and certainly wants to learn.
And he also has, no alternative now and maybe a little hope. I think he's probably like most of us. He feels like it's not likely, but he's got games to play here. That's his best chance. And maybe something clicks, maybe something turns, maybe there's a quarter or a play that gets his guy going and gives them their best chance. And they see a glimmer of something that can ignite the offense, maybe turn a switch for the play calling, et cetera, et cetera. That's their best hope at this stage. And then, for the segment out there that's calling for them to tank, it's not like it takes any effort for them to tank right now. They're trying their best and they're losing. So
no, they can't handle the silent counts and the noise of the crowd. They're disciplined on both sides of the ball in terms of penalties. The quarterback play has been bad. The play calling is, people are questioning the fourth down. I don't necessarily agree with that. Special teams has been bad. Turnovers are bad. Anything they try to do, Paul, it doesn't work. So if they try to tank, they're going to end up winning games. So we can't do that.
I had one person tell me that the fourth down go was a tank attempt, which I think is ridiculous. I disagree with you on that. I mean, I don't think you have any real momentum there. You're winning 10-0. The Bills haven't played any good offense. Punt it down and let them put together a drive to get their offense started against your defense that's played pretty well to that point before you do anything. He said today, well, on the 44, if we don't get it, I'm thinking we've played pretty good defense so far. It'd be 3 points, so I'm taking the risk against a field goal because I'm confident we're going to get a stop. Well, with this team and the way their luck is rolling, you miss that and you don't get the stop. You give up 7 points, and it felt like the end of the game.
Well, and interestingly enough, the Bills come back and score. It was 10-7 at that time. The Bills had scored a touchdown at the end of the first half, but
so you're down.
The point is still valid. I mean, the point. I think your effort is right. I just want to make sure I got that correct. And so, look, here's Austin asks, "This is a good right tackle edge rusher class." We got time in the offseason to get to that. There's some really good edge rushers in that top 10. I think last year was the better offensive tackle class, which is why the Titans drafted one there. So we'll get to some of the other questions here coming up. But I want to start with Vanette talking about, and Jake asked this question about the second half. I go, well, if this team was I want to know, this team was awful on first down. I think Nick Suss tweeted it out, something like 0 yards
in the second half.
In the second half on first down, and then
because of that 20-yard loss on the fumble.
So here was tight end Nick Vanette on Monday sort of talking about the struggles, and then Callahan had some thoughts too, and then Paul, you and I can go back and forth. But here was Nick Vanette.
Well, I mean, you said it. It's apparent there's some disconnect going on. It's too bad these games aren't 30 minutes because we'd be, having a way different record than we have right now. I don't know. I think it starts with the first series when we get the ball. I think that kind of determines how the half goes. And I think what's demoralizing is when we turn the ball over and we don't convert on that fourth down conversion, and then the Bills go ahead and score. You kind of felt the momentum shift happen right there, and then it seemed like it was really hard to get it back. But trust me, like, we're all trying to figure out what it is, why we're not playing as well in the second half as we are in the first half. That's going to be a huge focus for us moving forward, and we're really determined to figure out that so we can turn this thing around.
I mean, they haven't figured out second half stuff, fourth quarter stuff. They've scored 12 points this year, all in one game. And we're going to talk about the free agent class and the veterans, but I'm starting to wonder about how much fire there is from some of these guys, especially once the game, they've been close in some of these games, and I don't question the fire there. But in this game, which wasn't close, it kind of felt like there was a little bit of a shutdown element going on. I think people have overread the DeAndre Hopkins element to that. He had some calf or Achilles stuff going on that got looked at. Callahan's not mightily involved in that. He's told whether the guy's able to go or not. That's the extent. He's got a game he's calling in front of him. This stuff is going on behind him. But, Vanette also talked about the energy on the bench, and the energy gets sapped when they go down. That's a very immature feel. And this is a very mature football team.
No. So, okay, that's what I want to get to here, because Buffalo's last 5 drives, they scored all 5 of those possessions, 36 plays, 304 yards, 8.4 yards per play, 3 touchdowns, 2 field goals, game over. And it's one thing for things to snowball on the road against an elite quarterback and a quality football team, right? That can happen in the NFL. It just is what it is. But it's a part of the trend that runs through the entire season so far. And Brian Callahan talked a lot about, I want to get to the energy and the focus and the maturity of what you're saying. I want to get to that in a second. But I want to go to Callahan's comments, and I don't have a clip of it, but Callahan basically today went pretty in depth, I think, I guess, as much as a coach does, about facing a bunch of heavy run set defensive boxes, because we like to run the football a lot and people know that's what we're going to do. And so we're prepared for it. So we have action off of that. And then it's like, I guess the question is well, why aren't you able to then make the adjustments in the second half? And, it sounds like Vanette talked about the leadership aspect.
Vanette spurred that question because Vanette said, we're ready for what they do initially coming at us. And then they adjust, and we see things that we didn't practice against, and we're not good against it, which sounded like an indictment of coaching. I think he was just trying to be candid. I don't think he was calling out the coaches in particular. I think he was saying we haven't practiced against it. We're not good as a group at reacting to stuff we haven't seen. I mean, there's an indictment there on multiple levels. But that's not a good thing to hear. Now, that is offensive line centric, and it's the youngest offensive line in the league. But you want more from Bill Callahan there. You want more from guys who are big investments in, like Skoronski, who's a second year, like Latham, who's a first year, Cushenberry, who's a veteran that you spent a lot of money on. Radens, who's getting better. You can understand right tackle is a revolving door right now, and you're not getting much there. But then those tight ends who are helping, he sounded like he was counting himself among the guys who are having trouble with that stuff.
So I agree. It sounds like it's the coach's job to prepare a team, but when it comes to the sideline issue and the leadership, and I think you asked a question about, like, shouldn't the leaders be obvious? I think was that your follow-up?
Yeah, well, he was saying, I don't remember what exactly he was saying about the leaders, but then I said, who are the guys on offense that lead? And I think we have this clip, no? Or okay, well, he said, I'm not going to name names, like it was finger pointing to name who the leaders were. And I think that's a massive indictment of the guys on offense that Nick wouldn't say, oh, clearly DeAndre Hopkins is one of our leaders. He's been around forever. Yeah. And, Tony Pollard is a quieter guy, but his production speaks volumes, and Skoronski's emerging, and Will's having a hard time, but we certainly follow his. I mean, to not name one name there and to have a secret leadership society on offense is ridiculous. And I think it's more that there's nobody that's emerged in a big leadership role. He doesn't have any name to name.
I think that's the issue here, because and it shouldn't be a surprise. Like this part to me, and I think we talked about it in the summer, like the goal of this year and the goal of sort of the big picture strategy of the franchise on offense was clearly to invest in veteran pieces on defense to help Denard Wilson execute his vision and his plan, which they did, in particular at corner and of course at linebacker eventually. But the key on offense was always going to be Latham, high-value pick. Levis, high-value pick. Spears is a vocal part of this offense. Technically, Treylon Burks would have qualified maybe last year. And then you've got Skoronski as a high-value pick as well. All of them within their first few years. And all of them need to grow together into the leadership role as a group. Some are going to be more vocal, as Nick Vanette said. Some will be more vocal. Some will be more sort of by example. But to allow the game to snowball on you all the time and to not be able to overcome the adversity. And I think Callahan was as incredulous as Callahan gets in the press conference, saying, we just can't let that happen to us. We've got to be better on it. And Nick Vanette was saying the same thing. But like, you can see it on the sidelines. You can see it in the quarterback, Levis, when he's playing, that they just allow that type of stuff to get to them too much. And that is the whole point of being in the NFL, is to remove the college element of this, to remove the human element. It's meritocracy, play in, play out, go out and do your job. And that's a concern for me, because that's a player thing, not a coach thing.
You've also got Ridley and Pollard, who to add to that list, guys who were brought in to touch the ball a lot and be big threats. Pollard, pretty effective. Ridley, not effective at all. But that's a pretty good list of the guys you named, young, up-and-coming talent. Add on those two guys that I mentioned, and Cushenberry, who I mentioned. I mean, those are sizable investments. That there's no clear leadership guy is a problem amongst those guys, because I think the people that put them together would expect somebody to emerge. But also, I mean, this team in its best years, when it didn't have leadership, and I think it's 06, they went and got Mawai, Givens, who didn't pan out, Thornton, and Hope, all of them with great leadership qualities. Mawai, Hall of Fame level leadership qualities. And I think when you're shopping for talent, you have to also shop for leadership, especially when you're replacing Derrick Henry, who was big time offensive leader. Kevin Byard, the defense, I think, has more leadership guys, but not a singular leader, though they keep forcing Jeffrey Simmons down everybody's throat from the outside, talking about what a leader he is. But I don't think any of us really buy that. Leadership's a big problem on this team, and it hasn't fractured yet. But if it does fracture, it will be in part because we can't name these guys.
Well, and it's also
it's pretty remarkable. It's not fracturing, given that we can't name them.
It's true, and that the coaches all the front office and coaching staff are largely inexperienced at what they do is also a big factor in all of this. This is not 12 years of a defensive coordinator and 10 years of head coaching experience. This is very little experience at any of the roles that any of these guys are actually doing. So they're all learning on the fly. So Callahan has to learn how to keep his sideline together, even though, to your point, he has to look at what's in front of him on the sideline. He can't worry about what's behind him. And I think that's why Vanette said this is all on the players that have to do this. If you come off the field and you got beat on a play, or you dropped a pass, or you missed a block, the head coach is not going to be like, all right, well, remember our culture, guys. Like, that's not what this is. It is, you have to then forget about it, refocus, and go execute and do your job on the very next play. And the two that I would point to, because I don't think you can ask a rookie left tackle, who I think eventually will be a very good leader for the team.
Not yet.
I don't think you can ask a rookie left tackle to be that guy right now. It needs to be DeAndre Hopkins, it needs to be Lloyd Cushenberry, and it needs to be Will Levis. Those are the three that needed to be doing it this year. And Hopkins has been injured and sort of is a quieter guy. Cushenberry has not played good football, and Levis has been hurt and too emotional to do it right now.
Maybe Pollard, but I don't. Pollard's not a good media guy, so we don't really have a sense of his personality. Now, you could not be a good media guy and be a fine leader, though. I don't think that there are as many of those as people think there are, because generally, if you're a good leader, then you have to help put forward the face of the team. But he would be a candidate to me, because and I argued with Vrabel about this. I don't think you can lead from a place of no production. And Vrabel argued that you could. But Deion Lewis, they put forward as a leader on the team, and Deion Lewis didn't do anything. So I don't know what kind of sway he had. He certainly didn't have any with the media, and I don't think he had any in the locker room.
What conversation gets you more incredulous? The Amy Adams Strunk needs to be forced off of her team, or Mike Vrabel would be doing better right now? Which one irks you more?
Well, I think there's credibility. Mike Vrabel would be doing better.
Oh, sure, but it's pointless to think about.
Well, I understand why people are thinking about that, because that's a realistic possibility. Shit doesn't fire him. They spend this money maybe a little bit differently, and Mike Vrabel, with talent, has shown that he could be effective. The idea that the solution to all this is to force an owner to sell. There's no forcing an owner to sell unless the owner's involved in like sexual harassment scandals.
Yeah.
And she's not. And B, people just know with no business sense. Like the Titans as a business are doing great. They're about to move into a $2.1 billion stadium that's going to have a lot more than football going on in it that the Titans have a stake in.
The business is worth like 400% what it was worth when she took over.
Yeah. So the business is doing great. And also, I hit on this all the time. Titans are in a 3-year rut. 4 years ago, they were the number 1 seed in the AFC going into the playoffs. There are a lot of teams in football that would trade places with the Titans based on success. People are making it like the Titans have been horrific forever, which is just not true.
Just so you guys out there, this because you listen and pay attention to Paul's work. But when you're on this show, you kind of get like a more level-headed, even keel Kuharsky because he's had a day removed from the game. If you guys love more incredulous Kuharsky, make sure you check out the post-game show on the Paul Kuharsky podcast. What it is, it's about venting, and that's sort of the point
people
of it.
Pointed that out last night when I was getting in a huff. But we did spend 20 minutes on the Amy should sell. So I just said, we went from in J-Rob we trust to let Rand cook to Amy must sell.
All right. So this is a very Stoney, you didn't ask this question exactly, but I'm going to sort of take your points here and sort of weave them into a question because Paul, you mentioned that you are looking for some of those leadership characteristics and some of those traits when you are out there shopping for groceries, for lack of a better term. And he's sort of asking, what do you know if those types of guys aren't available in free agency? Did they whiff on evaluating those skills? So here's my question. If you know anything about Moneyball and baseball and sort of the analytics side of sports, is that sometimes you can go too black and white numbers-based spreadsheet scouting, right? Like you can go a little bit too far that way. And if you're going to do that, sometimes that does remove the human element of evaluating a person and his ability to sort of make people around him better or pull people through with the fire or whatever. Do you get a sense that because you've spent a lot of time with Brinker and the analytics side of things, do you get a sense that they tried to balance all of those things in their free agency this past season? Do you think that they swung too hard? Because a lot of folks were begging this franchise to expand the analytics side of things. Do you think they went too far into analytics and purely looked at production and not personality? Do you think or is that not even a fair question?
Look, I don't think many of us were arguing against what they did. I think some of us were pointing out, hey, the teams that do this in March generally don't come out smelling the best in September, October, and in the season. I agree with one of the things Stoney's saying here. Let's get talent and let leaders emerge is what he thinks they were thinking. And I think that's probably what they were thinking. Now, maybe that means they didn't think about it enough. That could be the case. They weren't targeting a Mawai or a Thornton or a Hope, right. Who clearly that was a line on their resume. But now it's easy to say they undervalued it because we're not seeing it. But if all these guys had produced to their level and they had a better record, if there were 3, what are they, 5, 1-5? If they're 3-3 now, which isn't inconceivable, though I hate to do the, adjusting what is, but if they were 3-3 now, would we be on a leadership search? Probably not.
No, I agree.
I think we need to wait a little longer to say that they failed in putting them together in terms of leadership, which doesn't matter as much now because they failed in terms of putting them together in terms of production. And production is what you're looking for first and foremost for the dollars.
Or even miscalculated on some of the assets they still already had in the building, whether it's Levis or Simmons. Those are 2 main ones, right? That should be the leaders of both sides of the ball. And right now, I'm not sure either is delivering in that department. It's hard to sort of quantify that. But I agree. And we're going to hear from Callahan about all those veterans in just a second because Daniel's saying, look, I'm just so bewildered again by the Ridley signing and the Snead trade. I thought they could be a playoff team this year. That last part, Daniel, I love you, man, but I can't get on board with that last part.
Well, better than last year was a reasonable expectation for people that were following this team on a day-to-day basis and not thinking here at 1-5 that a fire sale is the preferred thing. And as bad as this team is right now, it would be worse without Harold Landry, without an underachieving Jeff Simmons, without Hopkins. And I think that they should be looking to deal all 3 of those guys for as best as they can get, who have contracts that are not hard to bear for somebody that would take them on.
Nick Suss and I had the Tennessee and talked on Thursday's episode. We sort of went through all the different trade chips, and I think you alluded to this on your show. You don't just trade people to trade people, but you have an open phone line for everyone who's calling, and you listen to best offers. And if you get something that's good, you have to move on it, and you have to build your draft class for next year or the year after, whatever it might be. It doesn't mean you just trade people to do it, but you are listening to folks and what they say. So we'll get to Brian Callahan and the veterans in just a second, and how this team responds offensively and defensively. But I want to point out something real fast, of course, about your company, about this our company, my company, about Sinkers Beverages, Shotgun Willie's Barbecue. Look, this is Nashville, folks. Nashville is very, very good at supporting each other when it comes to the community, when it comes to business, when it comes to products, when it comes to creativity and development. It's all incredibly supportive. And it's the reason why Kuharsky is independent. It's the reason why I am independent. It is the reason why we use independent local businesses to support us, because we want them and we want you to support them. So Shotgun Willie's Barbecue, best barbecue in the city, as decided by the Nashville scene. Go check it out. The brisket eats like filet, y'all. I can't explain it any better way than that. And Sinkers Beverages, 4 straight years of being the best liquor store in the city, and now the best beer fridge in the city. You know why they get those awards? Because they're really careful to serve you, the people of the neighborhood and the community, the best possible products that you deserve. And so just go support them. You support Kuharsky, paulkuharsky.com. You support everything on the 440 Sports platform. You guys want us to keep saying what we want to say and doing what we want to do without any overlords and corporate suits. Then you gotta support good local businesses. So there you go. Sinkers Beverages and their sister store, Bluegrass Beverages, up in Hendersonville. Over almost 100 years, almost 90 years, of serving the community between those two liquor stores. So, okay, here was Brian Callahan on essentially like the veterans, and they just need to do a lot more, and everybody kind of needs to do a lot more.
I asked specifically about the money additions through the draft, through trades and free agents.
All right, here was his response.
Yeah, I think there's always room for more. I think we are in a position right now where we need more from everybody, top to bottom. And, those guys have the ability, they're the type of players that can change outcomes of games. And that's what that's what we need right now. That's the expectation, when those guys are in those spots, is to make the tough plays. And that's the difference between the teams that win games, tight games in particular, is when they're given opportunities to make plays, and they make them. And we have thus far not made enough plays really in all 3 phases with opportunities to win games. We haven't done it to win the game, and those guys are a huge part of helping us get to that point. So they're not alone. It's not solely on them, but we certainly need more from everybody to make more plays to win games.
All right, so let me do this real fast, and then I'll let you go. Calvin Ridley, 9 targets yesterday, 3 receptions. That's 36 targets, 12 receptions so far on the season. Tony Pollard has been nice. He's been a very good player. He definitely got a little banged up yesterday, but he was a very good player. And then the game control kind of got out of hand. L'Jarius Sneed, injured, did not play. Chidobe Awuzie, injured, did not play. Ernest Jones has been very good. He's been a very good player on this team. Kenneth Murray's been solid, been a pretty good player on this team. Also a little banged up yesterday. Jamal Adams, not on the team anymore. Quandre Diggs has been solid, had some good moments, had some, aging moments, but it's been okay. And then Lloyd Cushenberry, I think, sort of is the one that is maybe the most disappointing based on where he was paid, how much he was paid within his category. I mean, I don't know how you slice it. There's some nice stuff in here, Paul, but at the end of the day, this is on the front office, right? Or is Callahan, like, how much is Callahan on this? Like, this is,
well, they certainly didn't give him anybody he didn't want, but look, I mean, this is kind of the second year in a row the national opinion was right and the local opinion was wrong. I'm raising my hand and saying it. I mean, national opinion was like, why are they signing and spending all of this money when their quarterback was Will Levis? And we all said, well, why wouldn't you try to build up a good team, no matter who your quarterback is? But if you're giving Will Levis a chance, why wouldn't you want to have the best people around him that you could? And now at 1-5, it's fair to say, these people around the country who thought you should tear it down. I mean, the Titans could be 1-5 without a lot of those guys very easily. It would have been a terrible, terrible roster. It would have been conceivably worse or as bad as last year's roster. But they could have gotten B-level guys at a lot of those positions for a lot less money, pushed salary cap forward. to a degree. I mean, at some point you have to spend some of that money.
Yeah.
But certainly they could have passed on a Calvin Ridley, who there were some warning signs about, and gone some different directions at some different places. So I don't think there were any warning signs about Cushenberry, and maybe, the hope still is that Cushenberry turns out to be a very good player, and it's just taking him some time to get used to the Bill Callahan stuff. It's unfortunate it's taken that amount of time, though, because you want him to get it, play well, and lead that line. And it's just not happened. So look, what's the alternative to them having spent this $290 million or whatever it was?
That's my question.
Like replacement level players at these spots, which would have been incredibly ugly. And if they went that direction, we'd be looking out and saying, why, they're 1-5. Why didn't they sign better guys? But here's the alternative reality when they did sign quote unquote better guys.
I don't know how much, and I kind of, there's a discussion in the comments here about sort of benching some of these players. Certainly Ridley is the one that's coming to mind for some of these folks. I don't know what that buys you. I don't know how that helps. If Levis is playing, you certainly don't want to bench him. Is Brian Callahan in his 7th game in a position to start sending messages to players like that? I mean, you'd have to think that eventually he's got to earn that and sort of win that respect in the locker room. But I don't know why benching anybody sort of I don't know what that does for the team.
I mean, fans always want some kind of punitive action. They want a firing or
send a message
or a benching or a punishment. Look, if these guys, and I think most, if not all of them, are good pros, the line coming out of the locker room yesterday in Buffalo was, get back to work. We got to go. We got to go to practice, and we've got to work. And Ridley said that. Now, Ridley's been practicing for 6 or 7 weeks plus the preseason, and things haven't been good. At some point, something's got to click, or the guy is gonna go down as a bust. They're on the hook for at least 2 years here. So he's got 12 games, 11 games left this year and 17 left next year. They're gonna have to get something out of him, and it's got to be more than catching a third of the balls thrown his direction. He's got to be dangerous for them to help make what they want to do work. The other 2 guys, I mean, I understand people like the Boyd catches the ball, but he's not dangerous with it. Hopkins, because of what he caught on the lateral yesterday, ended up with 1 catch for negative yardage. The tight ends were in there and doing some things early. They got to find whatever it takes to make some things happen. And hopefully some of these veterans can turn things around and be better. But when Pollard, who, hasn't hit 100 yards because of the way they use Spears and because of the way the game shapes have unfolded, is clearly the best of your guys. It's a class that's not grading very well at all.
Yep. A bunch of comments here. David says, play better, coach better. Yes, thank you, David. Stoney says, no fix for this until we get another player acquisition cycle. Folks, call a spade, says Cody. Jake says, can't bench Ridley, but I'd like to see some more snaps for Jackson. That could be, in theory, some strategy, which is not to take anything away from anybody else, but maybe to be more creative with some of the other pieces.
That would take something away from Boyd, because he's got to be in the slot, and that's where Boyd is. And I wouldn't have a problem with them trying that a little bit, though we have no idea where Jackson is in terms of his development. His development as a returner hasn't been very good. So that doesn't hint to me like, he must be developing great as a wide receiver based on what he's doing as a returner. Yeah. Because as a returner, he still seems to think he's the fastest guy on the field and that he's going to outrun people, which he's not.
Ed asks about this, and Brian Callahan was asked this today. He says, I wonder during his interviews if Callahan has asked about his history of taking a year before having success, and if so, is that a part of the front office expectation all along? I would assume Ran is a intelligent human being that understands this team was not going to compete for any kind of championship. He probably had higher expectations than 1-5 or 1-6 or 1-8 or whatever it might end up being. But Callahan did talk about it today. He didn't give us any lessons that he learned, any through lines that maybe connected success coming out of those situations in Cincinnati or Oakland or Denver or whatever. But he has been in this situation before. And if you're looking for maybe a reason why he's capable of getting out of it is that he has experienced this in the past.
He said that. He said the first year's hard. And my hope is that having been through that elsewhere, I've got a little bit of a roadmap to help us survive it and get through it. You know, I think people calling for Callahan's head are going to be disappointed. Amy Adams Strunk, seemed to a lot of people to react to J-Rob too fast. I mean, I think J-Rob should have at least gotten to finish the season. A lot of people now thinking she reacted to Vrabel too fast. Not that 6 years isn't a long term, but she's got to be patient here. I mean, firing him after 1 year, just you're in reset mode again. And again, I think the biggest problem, as it was the last 2 years when you were dealing with J-Rob personnel, is personnel. And we just spent a long time on the personnel that they brought in. And Brian Callahan is not the chief personnel guy by any means.
All right, so let's. There's two comments here from Jason and Amy that different Amy, hopefully, unless she's got nothing else better to do on a Monday. Jason says the quarterback they draft next year will also need good players, and anyone that's still here will have more time in the system. So that is absolutely true. If they do end up with a verdict on Will Levis and decide to go a different direction, and they draft somebody, well, it's going to be better that they have Latham and Skoronski and Pollard and Spears and Ridley and Cushenberry. It's better off for that player then to come in here. That's sort of a soft reset. It's not a complete reset. And to Amy's point about look at Washington, worse team than Titans last year, all new coaches for an office, and yet they're putting up 40. I will say this. It's not necessarily just Jaden Daniels either. Washington hit on an entire draft class. Like they got a fullback in the middle of that draft that is playing on every snap. Like they have hit on an entire class, and it should be taken as a lesson that if the front office does their job very well and you have enough picks, you can kind of rebuild your team very quickly in the NFL.
Yeah, and she mentions Marcus. Shout out to Marcus, who had a big day yesterday. Yeah. But, they had already gotten a pick six and were on their way, and they played a terrible, terrible Carolina team. Can't blame them for who they're playing, and he got himself in a game that was set up for success, but, they weren't playing the Packers or the Vikings or the Chiefs yesterday.
Carolina's real bad. And Eddie points this out. They also have a very veteran coaching staff too. Dan Quinn's been around a long time. So what's interesting is Clubhouse says, I pray that we don't have drafted quarterback next year. Ed says, and this is an interesting question, what's more impactful to having fans buy-in? Although I don't know if fan buy-in is all that important of a subject here. That Levis has good games and the offense looks good, but they lose, or bad offense, but they win. There's benefits to both here, right?
Yeah. I mean, ugly wins can include some good from Levis. Look, it depends on where you are. Like, do you want Levis to, again, air quotes, succeed, to be at least in the mix going into next year? I think he's in the mix next year. He'd be a backup, in a worst case scenario for him. I think most fans do not want them to have many wins this year because they're married to this concept of a high draft pick being a cure-all, which it's not going to be. I hate to break the news to people, but high draft picks are not the cure-all to bad franchises who aren't going well. And oftentimes the 11th pick in the draft, Patrick Mahomes, is better than the first 10 picks in the draft. So there's no guarantee that a higher pick does better for you. There's no guarantee, and we're not going to spend time on it here, but we'll get to it eventually, that a quarterback out of this draft is going to be good. Braden seems to like it better than most people. So there are a lot of unanswered questions about all of that. Yeah, I think it would be nice if Titans fans got to sit down and enjoy a game a couple times this year. That'd be terrific.
However you enjoy it. If it's a lot of offense and losing or terrible offense and winning, whatever it is that you enjoy, I hope you get your cup of tea. Z Dean and Stoney are talking about this. It's about comparing the Titans to Detroit and to Dan Campbell and them being bad. I think somebody earlier in the comments mentioned this, building from the trenches, building from the inside out. Well, the Titans sort of have done that with Latham, Skoronski, Sweat. They have kind of started to build inside for the first time in a while. And if they can do that, and then Callahan gets to pick his guy, there is some reason to be excited about that, but that is that is next season, guys. That is in the off season.
Yeah, but the thing is, they've done it, but they still haven't done it. I mean, Sebastian Joseph Day is not a long-term answer. Simmons is on a downturn and maybe on his way out. But I mean, we keep talking about him like he's a dominant guy, but he's a middle of the road defensive tackle to me now, compared to the dominant guys he was once mentioned with. And the offensive line, they have better people in place in a lot of spots, but they're being killed by right tackle right now. So have they made moves with the trenches? Yeah. If they still need to spend high draft capital on those spots, I mean, listen, we've covered this. The 3 top picks, and again, they're without one of them next year because of the L'Jarius Sneed trade, need to be edge, tackle, wide receiver. And again,
Probably.
they're going to miss one of those because they're without a pick from the Sneed trade.
That's your building.
They don't draft edges ever. I mean, Morgan and Landry, there's no list. You go back to Curse. I mean, that's like and Landry was a 2nd-round pick. So it's Morgan and Curse as 1st-round picks. They got to change that trend.
Well, if you add another offensive lineman, you add a pass rusher. That is building. That is 2 years in a row of lots of investment.
Right, but I'm saying there's more investment in the trenches and more time that you're not getting the wide receiver. You're not getting, all these other positions that also need attention.
So this is sort of on the long, and this is something I'm really interested to track, and I want to kind of. It's not an assignment for you, Paul, but I'm curious because I'd like to know. You've been around a lot of teams with a lot of different types of locker rooms going through different types of seasons. And I'd like to know after the Detroit game, if things go the way on paper, according to Vegas, things go, I'd like to know what is happening to the dynamics of the locker room, considering we just had a conversation about confidence and about leadership and about maturity. I'd like to know your perspective on how it is changing from week to week and then relate it back to some of your experiences covering previous teams that have been through some of these struggles. So that's not something we can talk about right now, but I am curious to see what that looks like next Monday. If things go poorly as a 13-point underdog to the team that's one of the best in football, maybe many people's pick to win the Super Bowl and the Lions, what that looks like next Monday. So I'm curious about that. Quickly, here's one good positive note, and then I'll end. I'll end on a bad note. We'll do a positive note.
Appropriate.
Yeah. So I was curious about this because I was watching the game and the Bills went right down the field. 3 plays, 61 yards for a touchdown immediately following the Titans touchdown pass from Mason Rudolph. And they got up 10-0. And it occurred to me like, man, I think this team has done a pretty good job on defense of holding the line after scoring a touchdown, right? Not allowing a team to come back and counterpunch right away. Because that felt like Titans got up 10-0. They had a chance here to maybe do something crazy and slow the game down and make it dirty. And Buffalo, to me, that was the drive where Buffalo just said, wait a second. You're the Titans. We're the Bills. Let's go here. And I went back and checked every single touchdown they scored, all 11 of them, Paul. Scored 11.
It wasn't an advanced research project.
It also wasn't a lot of touchdowns. But they've scored 11 total offensive touchdowns so far this season. And the defense has been very, very good following those touchdowns with Denard Wilson. That was the first touchdown they had allowed the entire season immediately following their own score. Basically, it 2 against Chicago led to a field goal, 2 against the Jets, both punts, 1 field goal by Green Bay, a bunch of 3-and-outs by Miami and Green Bay and Indianapolis. Indy kicked a field goal on 1 long drive. But basically, I mean, the fourth quarter notwithstanding last on Sunday against the Bills, where a very good team sort of wore you down and put you away. This defense has been very, very good after the offense does something finally, we've got to hold the line. They've been very good at that this season. That was the first touchdown they've allowed all year following a score on offense.
That sounds nice. You wish it was more meaningful in terms of helping them to results. But if the opposition takes off 1 drive after the Titans score and then scores on 2 consecutive drives after that, it's just a matter of timing, right? It's
the big plays in big situations that you've alluded to.
Yeah,
for the defense. So now we've had a blowout. Now we've had a counterpunch, And we've had some big moments against the Jets and the Colts where they didn't make plays in critical situations. So, like, while the defense is the thing that we all like to point to as a positive, players are getting injured, they're not playing, and the defense is starting to wear down. So you can't continually put them in a situation to do what they're doing.
And the Titans had the ball for 20 minutes in the first half of this game and for 10 minutes in the second half of this game, where Josh Allen really picked them apart, found favorable matchups with the tight ends, and Brownlee. A week after being really good starting was less good. I thought Baker did a reasonably good job. And he's mentioned and looked at by Blake Bedingfield in his piece today at paulkuharsky.com. But look, Josh Allen did what you presumed that Josh Allen was going to do. He found the space. So the Titans looked good defensively early, but it was a matter of the Bills kind of feeling them out, figuring them out, and ultimately wearing them down and breaking them down.
Not surprising if you do the exercise the other direction. The offense has been really, really bad. So this is not earth-shattering stuff here, but 2 times Chicago scored. Neither of them were the offensive touchdowns, both 3-and-outs for the Titans offense following those scores. They did drive the length of the field against the Jets and kick a field goal following giving up a touchdown there, but then it was 3-and-out. The Packers is the only game in which the offense has responded with a touchdown to a defensive score. Otherwise, it's 9 punts, 7 3-and-outs, 15 total drives, 2 touchdowns, 1 field goal, and both touchdowns came in the Green Bay game. So the offense against Indianapolis, for example, gave up 2 touchdowns. The following drive for the Titans offense, 3 plays, 7 yards, punt, 3 plays, no yards, punt. Miami, 3 plays, 2 yards, punt. Granted, that was at the end of the game. And then again, yet on Sunday, Buffalo touchdown, 4 plays, 13 yards, fumble. That was the fumble there. Buffalo's second touchdown, 4 plays, 12 yards, punt. Buffalo's third touchdown, 3 plays, 0 yards, punt. And then the fourth touchdown, 3 plays, 5 yards, end of game. They've got to figure out, along with everything else, first down, third down, red zone, second half, whatever it is, they've got to find a way to counterpunch on offense. They've got to figure it out.
Yeah, it's not a lot of counterpunching. I mean, you didn't need to do much research on Buffalo because it was 34 unanswered, right? So we knew they weren't doing anything to come back from that. Once the Bills figured it out, it was over. And that's that lack of sideline energy. Energy isn't the reason you win or lose, but you have energy if you're winning. This is another Vrabel thing. Vrabel said energy doesn't create plays. Plays create energy. And there's another one I fought him on, but came to agree with him on from watching my kid play. Because no matter, watch your kid play, no matter how much the bench is fired up or the kids are fired up on the field, it rings hollow until something happens. And then when something good happens, there's real, viable, tangible energy that means something. And on this, I told Vrabel ultimately, I'm not trying to compare my kids' baseball with your, NFL team, but I've come to believe in what you said about energy from watching, 8:30 a.m. hot sun summer 13-year-old baseball. That is absolutely true. The plays create the energy, no matter what they're doing on the bench. It doesn't create a good at bat. It doesn't create a better fielding inning. It just doesn't flow that direction.
Well, and ultimately I saw it in real time, and I thought, man, I don't think I'd seen that all year from the Titans, giving up a touchdown immediately following their own score. And to your point, like the building was kind of a little uneasy. You were there, you could probably tell me, but it was probably a little uneasy. 10-0, 10 minutes to go in the second quarter, hadn't really done much on offense. Titans are up 10-0, and they go 3 plays, bam, bam, bam. And one of those was the big play to Coleman, I think. And then Cook punches it in on the very next play. And it's like the Titans have been very good at kind of keeping that out of the game. It's how they've been in some close games. But I thought that drive is what elevated all the energy in the building and brought it all back for the Bills. And I agree with you that Vrabel was right on that one.
That last touchdown with 1:53 left by Ray Davis is a concerning moment in terms of this give-up feeling. 3 guys contacted him, Murray, Brownlee. I don't remember the other. It was very half-assed, if you will. Simmons was running from behind. He didn't have a chance at it, but I was just seeing Simmons see it from behind with the frustration that, nobody could question Jeff caring about it. Jeff chases plays. Jeff works. Jeff's not producing right now, but Jeff works. And I don't doubt that it means a ton to Jeff. And I was just watching Jeff watch three guys have chances at Davis and ultimately not get there, and wondering, like, did those guys sell out to make that play, or are those guys done?
Yep.
And that's the beginning of thinking, like, this team gave up a little bit at the end of that game.
Not to take the youth sports analogy even further, but to your point, like 13-year-old baseball is still far more serious than like 8-year-old softball or 6-year-old soccer. But one of the things that I just will not allow my children to do is bad body language. I don't care if they lose. I don't care if they get out in softball or if they make a turnover in soccer. Like, I don't actually care about the outcome of the game or mistakes you made or didn't make. But you will not hang your head. You're not gonna mope around. You're gonna be proud of how you play. You earned the right to be on the field. You worked hard to get there. You deserve to be there. And this is why I'm fascinated by the locker room after the game next week, Paul. Not to put the cart before the horse here in a bad situation against the Lions. Maybe they come up with a big win and Titans fans are celebrating and we have a totally different show next week. But if they lose, I want your 20 plus years of experience in NFL locker rooms in tough situations to give us a perspective on where the emotion and the maturity level is on this group, because that is what I'm concerned about following that game next weekend. If we saw some of it in this game, it's not going to get any better if you lose to the Lions, especially if it's ugly. So I'm, again, not trying to put the cart before the horse here, but
I won't do great at the historical comparison because I have bad institutional memory on stuff like that, but I can certainly contextualize what I'll see at Ford Field.
All right. Well, we shall see. Also, if you're a little sad and depressed this week from the Tennessee Titans, Sinkers Beverages, everybody, and go get a great plate of brisket, Black Hawk Wagyu brisket at Shotgun Willie's Barbecue. Fantastic there. And, of course, Sinkers Beverages, 4-time liquor store of the year in the city of Nashville in Middle Tennessee. Go support them. They're good local businesses that do all of their work for you, the Nashvillian. So you should support them and keep the dollars in the community, everybody. So there you go. PaulKuharsky.com. What do you got coming up this week for everybody?
Well, I think I just hatched a couple ideas here. So Mike Herndon will write tomorrow. Blake Bedingfield's piece is up. I'm going to dig into this leadership issue and maybe look. A lot of people asking me if this is worse or equal to Ken Wisenhunt and his start. Maybe it's time to go into the Wayback Machine and see what exactly the Titans did do with that Ken Wisenhunt start, because I thought nothing would feel as bad as that, but maybe we're approaching that territory.
I mean, he had coached a lot of football games in the past, though. Like he had been ahead. That's a
different deal. And I don't think he had the personnel that this team has, though we're calling into question what exactly this personnel is now.
Braden's asking why MPF is playing. They have to play someone at right tackle.
Who do you propose?
That's why MPF is playing. They have to play somebody there. Someone has to play right tackle. I don't know if it's a smart strategy. Stoney Keeley can tell us. Well, playing with 4 offensive linemen, probably not smart.
Yeah, and Jalen Duncan was their choice in this game, and he couldn't make it through 5 plays without a hamstring injury. So,
and the hits just keep on coming. All right. You can get to him at Paul Kuharsky NFL on Twitter, paulkuharsky.com, and, of course, the Paul Kuharsky podcast, everywhere you get your podcasts.
Don't block the box. Be sure to lock your locks.
There you go. Of course, please rate, review, and subscribe. Thumbs up on YouTube, share on Twitter and Facebook. And if you are listening on a podcast app, we do appreciate you. Please rate, review, and subscribe. And give us 5 stars. If you do not give us 5 stars, you are a hater. For Paul, I am Braden. I'll be back on Thursday. Paul and I are back on Monday. Paul will be back on Thursday on his show as well. Otherwise, have a great week, everybody. We'll talk to you next time.
Cheers.